Leasing versus buying a car. It's one of those decisions that feels simple at first until you start running the numbers and realize how many moving parts there really are. If you've ever found yourself staring at a monthly payment calculator, wondering which route actually saves you money, this is your breakdown. Let's talk about the real cost difference between leasing and buying a car in 2024 and what most people miss when comparing the two. So, picture this. You walk into a dealership and see two options for that shiny new SUV you've been eyeing. If you buy it, the price tag is around $48,000. If you lease it, the dealer offers a deal for $565 a month for 36 months, with $3,000 due at signing. At first glance, that lease payment looks a lot lower than what a typical car loan would cost. But the question is, what do you actually get for that money? Leasing is in essence a long-term rental. You're paying for the depreciation of the car, the amount it loses in value while you're driving it, plus interest, taxes, and fees. You don't own the car, you're basically renting the newest portion of its life. Most leases run for 2 to 3 years, typically with a mileage limit of 10 to 15,000 miles per year. Go over that and you'll usually pay something like 25 cents per extra mile. If you drive 20,000 miles a year, that's an extra $1,250 per year in penalties. Buying, on the other hand, means you pay for the entire car, whether upfront or through financing. It's more expensive month to month, but when you finish paying the loan, you own an asset. You can keep it for years, sell it, or trade it in. The thing is, most new cars lose about 20% of their value in the first year and around 60% by year 5, according to Kelley Blue Book data. That means your $50,000 car might only be worth $20,000 after 5 years. If you sell it at that point, you've essentially paid $30,000 in depreciation. So in a sense, both leasing and buying involve paying for depreciation. It's just structured differently. Now let's dig into the numbers side by side. Say you lease a $48,000 SUV for 3 years. Your total payments might come to around $23,000, including fees and taxes. At the end of that lease, you hand the keys back. No equity, no trade-in value, and if you want another new car, the payments start all over again. If you instead buy that same SUV with a 5-year loan at 6.5% interest, you might pay around $940 a month, totaling about $56,000 over 5 years with interest included. After 5 years, the car might be worth $20,000. If you sell it, you've effectively spent $36,000 for 5 years of driving. Still more than the lease total, but you owned the car and could keep driving it payment-free for several more years. If you keep it for 8 years, the cost per year drops dramatically. So, when does leasing make sense? It's often about lifestyle and flexibility rather than pure math. Leasing appeals to people who want to drive a new car every few years without worrying about long-term maintenance or resale value. You're always under warranty, which means lower repair costs. If you value convenience, predictable payments, and like the idea of upgrading often, leasing can be a smart move. The average lease payment in 2024, according to Experian, is around $586 a month, about $150 less than the average monthly loan payment for new cars. That difference adds up, especially if you prefer lower upfront costs. But here's the catch. Leasing is a cycle. Once your term ends, you either lease again or buy a car at its residual value, which is the estimated worth of the car at the end of the lease. Dealers set that number at around 55 to 65% of the original price for most cars. If the market value is higher than the residual, you might get a good deal buying it out. But in most cases, you're paying a premium for the convenience of starting fresh. Buying, meanwhile, rewards patience. The real financial advantage of ownership kicks in after the loan is paid off. The average new car loan now lasts about 68 months, just under 6 years. So if you keep the car for 10 years, you get 4 full years of driving without any monthly payments. In that time, you might spend a few thousand on maintenance, tires, or brakes, but you're still ahead financially compared to someone who keeps leasing new cars every 3 years. Let's look at a simple 10-year example. If you lease every 3 years, you'll sign 3 separate leases in that time frame, maybe 4 if you prefer shorter terms. At an average of $550 a month, you'd spend roughly $66,000 over a decade and have nothing to show for it at the end. If you buy once and keep the car for the same 10 years, paying around $900 a month for 5 years, you'd spend about $54,000, including interest. Add $6,000 for maintenance and repairs from years 6 to 10, and your total hits about $60,000. But after 10 years, you still own a car that's worth around $10,000. That's a net difference of at least $16,000 in your favor. Of course, there are variables. Interest rates, residual values, resale prices, and personal driving habits all matter, and lately those factors have shifted. In 2024, average car loan interest rates hover between 6 and 8%, while lease money factors, essentially the lease version of an interest rate, are generally equivalent to around 4 to 6% APR. That means leasing can look cheaper on paper because financing rates are higher for buyers. But if you're planning to keep your car for a long time, the math still tends to favor ownership. Another thing to consider is mileage. Americans drive about 13,500 miles per year, according to the Department of Transportation. If your commute or road trips push you well beyond 15,000 miles annually, leasing becomes costly fast. Every extra mile adds up, and so do wear and tear fees for scratches, dents, or interior damage. Dealers inspect every inch of a leased car when you return it, and those small charges can easily total hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Buying, however, gives you freedom. You can drive as far as you want, modify the car, or sell it whenever you choose. You can even use it as collateral or trade it in to lower the cost of your next vehicle. There's flexibility in ownership that leasing just doesn't offer. Now, some people prefer to lease because they can drive a better car for less money each month. That part is true. A $40,000 lease might cost the same monthly as a $30,000 purchase. So if image, comfort, or technology are priorities, leasing can stretch your dollar in the short term. But long term, that logic works against you. If you're always paying for the newest car smell, you're never escaping the cycle of monthly payments. Let's also touch on insurance and taxes. Leased cars usually require higher insurance coverage because the leasing company, often the manufacturer's financial arm, wants to protect its asset. You'll need comprehensive and collision coverage with lower deductibles, which can add $20 to $50 per month. Taxes also differ. With a lease, you often pay sales tax only on the portion of the car you're using, not the full value. That's a small advantage early on, but when you buy, you pay tax on the full purchase price up front. It's more expensive initially, but you won't be taxed again later unless you buy another vehicle. Maintenance is another hidden factor. Leased cars are typically covered by factory warranties for the entire lease term, so you rarely pay for major repairs. That peace of mind can make leasing appealing for people who hate surprise expenses. But once you buy a car and keep it past the warranty period, you take on more risk. Still, the cost of repairs for a well-maintained car usually averages about $800 per year after the warranty expires, still far less than another round of lease payments. Let's consider electric vehicles for a moment. Electric vehicles change the math slightly. Because their technology evolves so quickly, their resale values can be unpredictable. Some experts argue that leasing an EV makes more sense right now, since you avoid long-term depreciation risk and get to upgrade as battery technology improves. For instance, the average EV loses about 52% of its value after 3 years, compared to around 39% for gas cars, according to IC's Cars data. That's a big hit if you plan to sell. So for electric vehicles, leasing can actually be a form of insurance against rapid depreciation. But if you're buying an EV and plan to keep it for a decade, the savings in fuel and maintenance can outweigh depreciation. Charging at home can cost the equivalent of paying about $1.20 per gallon compared to gas prices that average more than $3.50 per gallon in most states. Over 10 years, that difference can save you several $1,000s in fuel alone. One common mistake people make when comparing leasing and buying is focusing only on monthly payments. That's like judging a house by its rent check without thinking about ownership or long-term value. Monthly payments are just part of the story. Total cost of ownership, purchase price, financing, insurance, maintenance, taxes, and resale tells the real story, and that story depends heavily on how long you plan to keep the car. If you love new cars, drive moderately, and don't mind perpetual payments, leasing fits your lifestyle. If you value long-term savings, flexibility, and ownership, buying wins hands down. The break-even point usually lands somewhere around 6 years of ownership. Keep the car longer than that, and buying almost always comes out ahead financially. There's also a psychological side. Leasing feels easy. You walk in, sign a few papers, and drive off in a new car with a lower monthly bill. It's predictable, clean, and convenient. Buying feels heavier, more commitment, more responsibility. But the sense of freedom you get when your car is paid off, that's something no lease can give you. Here's another angle. Some people lease for business reasons. If you use your car for work and can deduct part of the lease payment as a business expense, leasing can make tax sense. However, you need to track mileage and usage carefully, and tax laws vary by region. If it's purely personal use, that deduction doesn't apply, and the financial advantage disappears. Now, consider the used car market. In recent years, used car prices have surged, up nearly 35% from pre-pandemic averages, though they've started to cool in 2024. That means cars are holding their value longer than before. If you buy now, you might recoup more later when you sell, especially for popular models like Toyota, Honda, or certain EVs. That stronger resale value tilts the balance even further towards buying. Let's wrap this up with a realistic scenario. Imagine two friends, Sarah and James. Sarah leases new cars every 3 years, always staying under warranty and never worrying about repairs. Her payments average $550 a month. James buys a new car for $45,000 and finances it for 5 years at $850 per month. After 5 years, his loan is done. He keeps the car another 5 years, paying around $800 per year for maintenance. After 10 years, Sarah's spent about $66,000 and has no car. James has spent about $59,000 and still owns a vehicle worth around $8,000. Same 10 years, completely different outcomes. So leasing versus buying isn't about which is better, it's about what fits your priorities. Leasing gives you convenience, predictability, and the thrill of driving new cars often. Buying gives you equity, flexibility, and long-term savings. The key is to be honest about your habits, how much you drive, how long you keep cars, and how much financial freedom you want down the road. If you take one thing from this, it's this. Leasing is paying for temporary comfort. Buying is investing in long-term value. Both can make sense, but only one helps you build wealth over time. And if you want more practical insights like this to help you make smarter money decisions, don't forget to subscribe to Taz's Money. Because the next time you see that shiny new car on the lot, you'll know exactly what you're really paying for and whether it's worth it.